Hey musicians, Randy here with the DIY Advisor, talking to you from our studio in Chicago, Illinois. And we're here to continue a series called 7 Legal Mistakes Musicians Make and How to Avoid Them. We talk about the first 4 in another article, and this one continues it. So let's dive into number 5. Number 5 has 2 parts. It's about not avoiding or not using the work for hire agreement. Why is there 2 parts to that? It's because the not avoiding part has to do when you are being hired, and the not using part has to do when you hire other people. What does that mean? Well, when you're hired to do a work for hire work, you don't own the work when it's done. You don't own it at all. You can't even use it as a promo or under any circumstance because it's not yours anymore. You can give up the rights for it. It's fine to give up the rights for it. You can do a work for hire, but make sure you're getting paid extra for it and you know the consequences. We cover this in an article. We're going to provide the link down below. And we also provide a link about another thing, which is hiring other people. Let's say you hire a graphic artist and you say, hey, I want you to do a logo for me. They give you a logo, you love it, you start using it. Who owns the logo? Is it you or the graphic artist? A lot of people think that it's the musician, the person who does the hiring, but it isn't. Unless you specify, the work is actually owned, and the logo in this case, is actually owned by the graphic artist. So how do you avoid this? You say and specify that any work that they do is a work for hire. Well, where does this come up? This comes up for graphic arts. This comes up a lot for photographs. Photographers often make their money for this, and if you're going to hire them, you often want to hire them to do it as a work for hire so that you can reuse the pictures any way you want to. They understand this. They will often ask for a little more money, just like we said on the other side of the house, and it's just something to keep in mind as you do it. The next is ignoring tax implications with cash. What does that mean? Well, tax implications with cash has to do with the fact that if you take money in, let's say you have a very successful evening, they give you a fat wad of cash and you start using it as you're spending money. This goes back to something that we talked about in the last article, the first part of this, which talks about separating business and personal expenses. When it gets into your pocket, it's a personal expense. What you really should do if you get a fat wad of cash is to deposit the money any way that you can. Make sure to deposit it. Therefore, it's registered as a full deposit. You get the full value for it. Why do you want to register the money that comes in? I mean, it seems counterintuitive. You have to pay tax on anything that comes in. Well, the truth is, and we talked about this a little last week, is that the IRS considers any business that could be a hobby that it may be a hobby unless it can show a profit. You can have a loss for a year or 2, but if you start having more than that, they're going to look at those write-offs of your guitar and the amp and the keyboard that you bought as being maybe just hobby expenses that aren't really covered. Well, by keeping track of your cash the right way, you can do it. We talk a little bit about this in other articles, and again, we're going to link at the bottom to some of the other articles you should read, but just keep that in mind. See if you can put it in a separate envelope and deposit it immediately, or find a way to account for it from that standpoint. And finally, the last legal mistake you want to avoid is to make sure that you get professional help for tax-related issues. And why is this the case? Well, the truth is we're only as good as, the research that we do, but tax professionals do it for a living. Getting an accountant is, I think, out of all of the professional services that you can pay for, one of the best values because they can make the money back if you do it the right way. Their advice is very, very much something that it directly affects your bottom line. And it goes back to the same advice that you would take when you form your music business, because you have a lot of choices. You could do it as a sole proprietorship and just start doing business. And that's one way to do it. But the second you think about, say, forming an LLC or a partnership or even some kind of not-for-profit, you're going to want to talk to an accountant. And at the end of the year, you're going to make sure that everything is accounted for properly and they can really help with that. So there we go. Through the last 3 things, it's about work for hire, ignoring tax implications with cash, and making sure you get professional help in the right way. Hit subscribe and make sure to hit the thumbs up if you want to find this again, because it'll be in your liked videos. And finally, make sure to bring comments at the bottom. We read them. We're happy to get the comments and answer questions whenever we have time in between writing articles. Thanks, and good luck with those legal problems. Let's just avoid those landmines and get out there and make money for ourselves.